My father, the same man that gives me so many empty threats, shows up out of nowhere all these years later and demands that I take my sister, who, by the way, I don't even have a close relationship with me on my honeymoon. First of all, I've already paid for the tickets. I would never do this. And then all of a sudden, he also tells me, if you don't do this, I'm going to cut you out from your inheritance. I didn't even know I had an inheritance. My mom, Charlene, always told me that being a girl is not a disappointment but a blessing. Even though somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I acknowledge the truth of her words. I can't stop feeling like I'm one of the world's greatest disappointments because as long as my father, Steve, was concerned, that's exactly what I am. For as long as my father has lived, he wanted a son. An heir to carry his name, you know. He did not need a female child, and he made sure that I knew all that. I may have been born in the 21st century, but I might as well have been in the 18th century, with the way my father treats me. Well, he even told me that he had never been so disappointed in his life as he had been on the day of my birth. He had not always been this cruel. In my earlier years, he had an actual interest in me. He would take me to sports games, hoping that I might develop an interest in male pursuits because to him, the only thing that could make him forgive having a girl child is if a said girl child acts like a boy. Well, unfortunately for him, I was a girly girl as I could get. Rather than football or wrestling, I preferred playing with dolls, reading novels and poems, dancing ballet, baking, and those kind of things. So, this irritated my father so much, and he started comparing me to my male cousins. He would disparage me and command me to be more like my cousins. He soon became increasingly critical, finding fault with every single thing that I did. He yelled at me for minor infractions, doing everything to make me feel small and insignificant, and most times I ended up in tears. Because, I did not make myself. I didn't choose to be born like this, and I sure as hell did not make myself be born into my family. But perhaps what made it hurt the most was the fact that he was my father, and I wanted him to love me. I wanted him to accept me and call me his daughter. When I could not force myself to like the guy stuff, I tried turning to things that could improve my standing in the eyes of my father, like, I don't know, my academics, maybe. I started thinking of pursuing medicine. I believed that becoming a renowned surgeon or something, kind of like Ben Carlson, my father would have no option but to love me and be proud of me. It was a wild dream that fizzled out fast as a prairie fire inside of a rainstorm. When my mom found out what I was trying to do, she tells me that getting my father to love and accept me for who I am was like getting snow to fall in the month of July. She did not say it to discourage me or hurt me. Rather, she said it as a woman who has experienced my father's rejection. Just like that, and I wasn't the only one my father punished for his lack of a male child. He also punished my mother, perhaps more than he did with me. He never raised his hands on her, but you see his words? He wielded it quite adeptly like a swordsman. Hurtful words and cutting remarks that made it plain and simple that he saw her as worthless simply because she could not bear him a male child. Well, my mother finally had enough of it, and immediately I gained admission into college, she divorced him and traveled out of the country. Her decision, well, it crushed me. Even though she kept in touch, I still felt abandoned. However, over the years, I came to understand. Nobody should continually but put down as my father did my mom. Yet because she loved me, my mom ensured that she stayed for 18 years. She deserved to break away from my father and find herself once again. A year after the divorce, my father met Lorna, a widow with a teenage daughter. Her name was Leslie. Lorna was working in the same company as my father and had just been transferred to the branch in which my father worked. Well, guys, 6 months later, he married Lorna, and she and her daughter moved into the house. Since I was in college, I did not interact with them much, which was a good thing because the little time I did interact with Lorna and Leslie, much was left to be desired. Leslie was a child who just had an adult body, an obnoxious one. She was spoiled rotten and ate like a pig. To top it off, she does not understand the word boundaries, and believes that simply because my father married her mother, that makes us sisters, and that just gives her the right to my stuff, as well as a right to talk to me any way she feels like it. The not-so-hilarious thing is that she talks a lot, so it means that every time I'm in her presence, I was always battling with the urge to slap her, And don't let me get started on Lorna. You know the saying, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear? That's exactly what Lorna's trying to do. I'm not the one to put on airs. I could not care less about one's financial status. However, it's obvious that Lorna and Leslie did not have much before they met my father. Now that they're married, Lorna is forever trying to act like she's the next thing to royalty. It'll be hilarious if she was not always trying to tell me what to do. Then there's the fact that Lorna promises my father a son. She even claims her father and family have a long line of male children. It's true that it does tip the odds in one's favor, but does not the issue of a child's gender depend more of the father than on the mother? Anyways, my father believes in Lorna and caters to every one of her whims, including setting up a trust fund for his future son. Without anyone telling me, I knew what it would mean for me if Lorna gave my father the son he so desired. I could not be cut off completely from his inheritance. Not that I put my hopes on it, but that trust fund drove the wedge between my father and me deeper. I stopped going home often, spending most of my holidays at my mother's place. Then, in my final year of college, I met Colin. He was doing his master's at the school, we met at the school's cafe, and there was an instant attraction. Soon, we got to dating. And by the time I finished college, he proposed, and for a while, it was only my mom who knew of my engagement, but once the planning for the wedding started, my mom and Colin urged me to tell my father. Even though I felt like my father was least deserving of such an honor, for the sake of my mother, I informed him that I was getting married. My father did not even try to offer a congratulatory message. All he said was, "Oh, I see." Lorna and Leslie had no issue. They were actually gushing over me. And, well, yeah, besides that, they started planning what outfits they would be wearing to the wedding and dropped non-subtle hints that they wanted to meet Colin, and that guys was the second reason I did not want to inform my father. I didn't want those two imposters at my wedding. Colin told me that it was unavoidable, and I should not let such thoughts steal my joy. I was trying to do that, to a large success, until this morning happened. I was on a call with my mother, touching on a few details about my wedding that would be happening in 3 weeks' time, as well as the honeymoon destination that I had inside my brain. I had no sooner ended the call when Lorna entered my room. Without an iota of shame, she told me that she overheard my conversation with Mother and wanted me to take Leslie along with her on the honeymoon because her baby girl had always wanted to see Bali. Guys, my jaw came unhinged. I mean, what? What do you mean that I should take your daughter along with you to Bali on honeymoon of mine? I'm not even taking my own mother, yet you expect no. You demand that I should take your spoiled, disrespectful daughter along with me? I told her that even in her wildest imagination, I was never going to be able to do that. Guys, do you know what she said about that? She said that we would see about it. And then she stormed out of my room, and nobody needs to tell me what she had in mind. She was going to get my father involved. And it was all going to get messy. A few weeks ago, Lorna had announced that she was pregnant, and ever since then, Lorna could as well be a goddess. In a bid to save myself from such an emotional trauma, I'm half in the mind just to take Leslie along. I mean, it's just for a few days, and I won't have to listen to the hateful things my father is sure to spew. Yet, even as I write this, I can't help but feel disgruntled. Left to me, she and her stupid daughter won't even be attending my wedding. Update number 1, 3 days later. Hello, everyone. It's been 2 days since I shared the story of my life, and since then you have all been supportive. In just this short time, I received an influx of advice from you guys, and I could not be more grateful. Like most of you advised, I stood by my decision, refusing to let Lorna bully me into something I was uncomfortable with. And just like I expected, when she saw that I would not change my mind, she informed my father about it. My father called me this morning and commanded that I take Leslie with me on my honeymoon. Well, when I refused, he gave me the most outrageous threat I've ever heard. He told me that if I did not take Leslie with me on my honeymoon, he would simply disown me. Now, you guys, when he said that, I did not know if I should actually just laugh or, I don't know, maybe just walk out on him or something. In the first place, I had no hope whatsoever placed on his inheritance. And after over 22 years of trying to earn my father's love, I've come to terms with the fact that my father, he would never look upon me as a parent should, his child. However, I have never in a million years expected that my father would ever be so cruel that he would threaten to actually disown me. And for what? His codfish of a wife and her irritating daughter? It's my wedding, my honeymoon. It would perhaps be understandable if Leslie had been a boy, but Leslie is a female. Yet, putting her happiness over mine, how could he? I haven't told Colin about this yet, I know I should. But I'd say a part of me feels like he would be willing to sacrifice for my own sake and agree to bringing Leslie along on our honeymoon. But I don't want him to be considerate. He loves me, and he would do anything to make me happy, and that's why I love him, but this is a battle I just can't lose. Whatever decision I would make would be the turning point in my life regarding my father and his family. I'm angry enough that I want to tell him to go to hell, but a part of me is hesitant, wanting to obey and just get it all over with. If I refuse and he disowns me, it means that I will no longer have to contact with him at all. He may not love me and might never even accept me as he ought to, but he's still my father, and I can't bear to lose him, or can I? To be honest, his threat has brought up a boatload of mixed emotions in me. On one hand, there's anger, there's resentment, and a deep-seated hurt. And on the other hand, there's a fear of insecurity. I just want to walk away as much as I want to do my family's bidding, for the sake of peace. However, there is one thing I'm certain of, and that's the fact that this altercation is forcing me to confront the reality of my relationship with my father. He's a toxic, selfish man who enjoys bullying people. If I give him this ground, I feel like I would be signing my life over to him. If only my mind was not so muddled. Update number 2, 4 days later. Hey guys. So, it's me again, and here I am. Thanks for staying with me. You did not judge me, instead you understood and sympathized with me. You know, I'm grateful. I've not exactly given my father or Lorna my answer. Since it's been 3 days since my father first made the threat, they're probably thinking that I've caved in and done as they've demanded. My father sure does not hesitate to remind me of what would happen if I was just thinking of going on my honeymoon without Leslie in tow. What they did not know was that regardless of the threat, I still didn't think that I would be taking Leslie along with me on my honeymoon. However, I spoke to Colin about it, and as many of you advised me to do, even though he wanted to agree for peace sake, he understood that my father was outright being manipulative, and we could not afford to give in to his cruel manipulation. That's no way to start our love, catering to whatever thing my father desires. He suggested that I talk to my mom about it, and I agreed. So the next day, which was this morning, we called my mom on Skype. I explained everything to her, and guys, you don't want to see how mad my mom got. She got red in the face, and then she cussed my father so hard that she would give a sailor a run for the money. She told me that his inheritance could burn in hell. She was just so angry that he dared to put such an ultimatum on me because of his family. She said that my father had done me wrong for a long time. But this one must have took the cake. According to her, no inheritance is sufficient to pay me for the years I had put up with him. She then went on to apologize for leaving me after the divorce. She looked near tears, and I just had to calm her down and promise that I was all right, and was going to remain all right. She insisted that I not give it to my father, at all, none of his threats. She said that Lorna asking me to take Leslie on my honeymoon in the first place showed that she had the brains of a bird, and the shame of a donkey. Guys, I have to tell you that I've never felt more loved than I have been this morning. Backed by Colin and my mother, their outrage gave me a sense of justification. That I was the one wronged, and I wasn't just being unreasonable because, to be honest with you guys, I sometimes wondered if that was what I was doing. Their responses squelched those stupid whispers of what if. My mother suggested that I get out of the house away from my father's threats and his selfish family, so that I could think clearly without them pressuring me. And Colin supported the idea and said I should lodge in a hotel till the wedding, that he would foot the bills, and it was not a hard sell, though I don't think I would stay that long at the hotel. Just the mere thought of getting away has already gotten me relaxed. Update number 3, 2 days later. Hey everyone, you would never believe what happened today. When I agreed to move into a hotel, I never in a million years thought that I would come up with what I did this morning. Today was the day I moved out of the house to the hotel. Colin came over to help me pack, and even though I didn't have much to pack, lol, I made sure it was after my father and Lorna had gone to work. Not that I was scared of what they would say if they saw me, but I did not have the time or the strength to deal with them. Colin drove me to the hotel and stayed with me till I got a room, and just as we turned to head to my room where Colin would finally say goodbye, I noticed a familiar face. It was one of my father's co-workers, a sweet woman by the name of Claudia. She was one of the people I enjoyed seeing because she was always so happy and bubbling with joy. However, today she looked so sad and I got concerned. I gave Colin the key to my room and told him to go ahead and that I would join him later, and then went to meet Claudia. She was surprised to see me and asked what I was doing there, and I just gave a flimsy excuse about wedding jitters, and then asked if she was alright. She tried brushing me off, but I made her promise to meet me for coffee in the next few minutes, and she agreed. So I rushed to bid Colin farewell and rushed back to the hotel's lounge where we agreed to meet. It took a little, coaxing, but she finally told me what had made her look so sad earlier. Turns out that she had always been in love with my father, and in the moment of vulnerability, she told Lorna, who was her close friend, about her feelings, not expecting Lorna to go behind her back to win my father's heart. At that point, I almost told her that she got the better end of the stick. I couldn't, and still can't, fathom how she could be in love with a beast like my father. But there's no accounting for taste, so I just stayed silent. However, I allowed her to pour out her heart, and she told me that it took a while, but she finally mustered the courage to reach out to Lorna and mend the gap between her and Lorna. Even though Lorna had been the one in the wrong, Claudia said that she had to pretend not to be upset about Lorna stealing my father from her. At first, Lorna simply didn't believe her, but after a few weeks, Lorna finally believed Claudia was not angry with her anymore. Just like that. In fact, she believed Claudia so much that she brought her in confidence. Slowly, Lorna shared with Claudia how she married my father because of the money, and how she planned on divorcing him as soon as he gets what she wants. Claudia told me that Lorna had told her that though it was true, Lorna was pregnant with the baby boy, Steve was not the father. According to Claudia, Lorna had a lover by the name of Kylie before she married my father. But rather than just cutting things off with Kylie when she married my father, she continued with the affair. She revealed that Lorna was in love with Kylie and not my father, and yes, Kylie is the father of Lorna's baby. Because of my father's ecstasy at the thought of having a son at last, when Lorna asked that she be made the sole trustee of the trust fund my father had set up for the baby, he did not even refuse. Can you believe that? Claudia told me that Lorna had also convinced my father to transfer most of his major assets as well as most of his money to the trust fund, unable to handle the deception any longer. Claudia ran to the hotel to decide what to do with the things Lorna had told her. Guys, I couldn't believe what my little ears were hearing. To think these are the people for whom he is ready and disowning me for. As I write this, I can't help but wonder about how twisted karma is. I don't know what to do with the evidence I've gathered yet, but one thing I do know is that seeing the look on my father's face when he learns of this is something that I cannot pass up on. So, I'll let you know how that goes. Update number 4. 4 days later. Hey guys, this little, bowl of gumbo would have been crazier without all of you. Colin and my mother being by my side, and for that I just want to say, deeply from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I mean, I really mean it, thank you. It's been 3 days since Claudia offloaded on me the information that is sure to change my father's life. Sheesh, this has the makings of a Telemundo. Except when it's your life, it's more dramatic and unbelievable than in the movies, even. After her confession, I thanked Claudia for trusting me with everything, and I promised to be in touch. I knew that I needed the input of the 2 most important people in my life before deciding what to do with what I had learned. So the next day, I went over to Colin's house and he asked what I was doing away from the hotel so soon. I told him that I had something important to tell him and my mom. We got my mom on Skype, and as precisely as I could, I told her everything Claudia had told me. Guys, you won't believe what my mother did. She laughed and laughed so hard that she almost tumbled from her chair even. And at that point I was scared Colin would realize what a nutcase my family was and simply call off the entire wedding. But the crazy man did not only sit back watching my mom in amusement, he still wanted to marry me. It takes a crazy person to love another crazy person, you know. And I'm so glad he's mine. I know I'm not here to talk about Colin, but I just could not help myself. So, back to my conversation with Colin and my mom. Just when my mom caught her breath, she muttered out loud how mom and, my father married someone worse than himself. And she broke out into laughter. Finally, after taking 30 minutes to laugh, she asked me what I planned on doing, and I told her that there was nothing to do but dump the information on my father in an act that, what I would say is revenge. Because whatever inheritance we had been counting on would definitely be in that trust fund. Steve had set up for Lorna's baby, and the one that he thinks is his but is actually for her lover. Now that I'm writing this, I realize just how hilarious this whole situation really is. I don't blame my mom for laughing as hard as she did. Colin and my mother agreed that my father deserved to have this one pulled on him, and I would be the courier that would deliver the news straight to my father. I messaged Claudia and asked if she was willing to help me pull off what I had in mind, and she agreed. So guys, yesterday, I went to see Steve in his office, and surprisingly, Lorna and Leslie were in. I told him that I had made my decision and would not be taking Leslie with me on my honeymoon. Without blinking, he told me that he disowns me. I stopped him mid-sentence and told him that I was the one who was doing the disowning. I let him have a piece of my mind, and I told him that he was toxic, and he was manipulative, and that I would not wish his fatherhood on my worst enemy. He got spitting mad and shouted at me to get out of his office. I told him that I would after I gave him my parting gift. Just then Claudia entered and gave him the printed evidence of her chats with Lorna. When Lorna saw it, she shot Claudia a death glare, dragged Leslie up, and headed out while throwing her over the shoulders that she was filing for a divorce. Guys, I stayed back for a few seconds just to see my father realize that he had indeed lost everything. After I walked out feeling lighter than I ever had. Final update, 10 days later. Hey guys, it's me. I just want to let you know how grateful I am for your consistent support and advice through it all. You probably thought that you would not see me here again, right? So, not after my last post, but I still have some updates to give you. I should have done it earlier, but the past few days have left me really busy. First on the list, that is, I'm finally married to the love of my life. The wedding took place 2 days ago, and it was everything my teenage self dreamt of and more. Most of all, I'm just excited to be starting a new life with this man. I'm not scared about starting a family with him because I know that he would love our children, both boys and girls, with every little bit of love in his heart. And I'm currently on my honeymoon without any Leslie in tow, and I'm happy to announce that, LOL. Talking about Leslie, The last I heard of her and her mother was that they had kicked Steve out of his house. Well, technically, it was no longer his house. That foolish man had also signed the house over to Lorna and Leslie. And when I heard that, I could only shake my head in disbelief. I mean, how stupid could this man be? All because that woman was supposedly carrying his son. I mean, that's it. He threw his sense of reasoning out the window. The divorce was without fuss, well, on Lorna's part, and I bet Steve would have tried to put a fight up even though it was clear that there was no fight to put up. Lorna had bested him through and through. She, Kylie, and Leslie and the unborn child are happily living off everything he worked for, while Steve is left penniless and homeless. My mom told me that he had contacted her, trying to convince her to help him. And when my mom told me, I almost fell out of my chair laughing. Now, who is the one with the shame of a raccoon after destroying the only family he truly had with his callousness and toxicity? He expects to find love in a broken ruin. What he has done is failed to remember that no one can reap love where he did not plant the seed. Enough of Steve. He's in my last wishes, and we all know the past is better left forgotten, and there's nothing that speaks of a new beginning as loudly as a wedding. The first place Colin and I headed for our honeymoon was to visit my mom. It was a surprise, and she was so pleased. I've been blessed with a mother who loves me more than life itself, and a husband who would do anything for me. Looking back, I don't know how I would have survived those crazy days without their unwavering support and unconditional love. The only thing left to do is to embrace this life that I have with them, creating new memories to replace the sour ones. And on that note, I would like to say that you're all a part of the people I count as a blessing to me. Thank you once again.